So, welcome to another episode. So, today we have Yulia Yumalova on, who is a flexibility expert. So, welcome, Yulia.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today.
So, what is the importance of flexibility? I mean, even myself at the minute, I've got a back injury. Do you think that comes from lack of flexibility, and should I be focusing more on that?
Well, I always like to say that flexibility is a result of order inside the body, and it's not just stretching or like something that is like passive. And therefore, for example, like one tight area of your body, such as your lower back, for example, would be like coming from a mix of different reasons and like components. For example, one of the most common is like your lower back is overworking for the muscles that are not working and not engaging properly, such as your deep core muscles, which is in front. That would be one reason, or like imbalance between the upper body, like your thoracic spine, or in the lower body, because you're not properly engaging and again activating the upper body, or like the tight hamstrings, which would be the third reason. And it's like flexibility, like when we're talking about like a healthy flexibility, is just a balance between like engaged and relaxed muscles. Because if we're not engaging certain areas of our body properly on a day-to-day basis, eventually body will start protecting you and overworking with the muscles that are like have to work and that you used to engage all the time. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So, is it like a car that has, a car has four wheels, four tires, four brakes, and if we were to imagine that one of the brakes was the only one working and the other three weren't working, they needed repair. That brake is working extra hard, which is going to cause heat on that particular brake pad, brake discs, which is once you're driving, it's going to turn the car. Is that the sort of thing you're referring to? If there's an imbalance in the body
Absolutely.
somewhere that manifests
Absolutely.
somewhere maybe that isn't the source of the problem, is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, many people think that flexibility is the stretching. And so, like, they just try to passively stretch for hours, or I mean, not for hours, but like, if you're gonna go to the yoga class, most of the times it's not something like active, and it's not like, it's just like, depends on the yoga class, of course, but like most of the times it's just a passive, gentle stretch. And if you're coming from like a bodybuilding experience or like from pretty much like, even the regular life, what happens is like you will find that you go on a yoga class and you feel very stiff, and you kind of fight with your body trying like to force it to relax, which it doesn't make sense at some point. Like, of course, your body eventually will give up and like get a bit more flexible, but it happens not because you actually getting like progressing, but because your body produces the hormones while you passively stretch that helps you to overcome the pain and numbing the nervous system responses, so you feel like you're getting more flexible, but at the same time it happens because of the you just numbing the pain. And what would be like a proper approach is to actually talk to your nervous system through the movements and introducing the new ranges of motion to your body with the dynamic stretch. So, like, don't try not to stay stagnant as you stretch. Try to implement, like, first of all, dynamic movements, because we want to activate like blood flow, lymphatic flow, like synovial liquid in the ligaments and joints, and like in ligaments. And that's something that would really help you to get more flexible. And it would be a way better than the passive stretch.
So what? Just to sort of summarize or try to understand what you're saying is that we need more dynamic than static stretching. Is that what you're alluding to?
Exactly. Yes.
So, and this is a really important point actually. That when I've played football in the past, or obviously I do judo now. Yes, we do some dynamic stuff, but a lot of the time it's static stuff. Stretch or stretch or hamstring. I can't obviously stand up now to show you, but hamstrings and calves and things like that. And also, do we need to do that when we're warm rather than cold? So is it better to stretch dynamically after exercise or beforehand? Because is there a risk that if you do stretch too dynamically before a work, some sort of workout or martial arts, that there is a risk of injury because the muscles not or the you're not warm enough to be able to stretch the muscle and the ligaments. It's cold, so it might cause injury.
Well, yeah, I would say that like there is a quite interesting study that they took like a certain amount of runners and they did like a passive stretch before the run and active stretch, and they had no stretch at all before the run. And so those three groups, like stretching, passive stretching, active stretching, dynamic stretching, and no stretching at all, had like quite different results, and it affected the run and runners. So like the passive stretch actually decreases your like response to contract and like to perform better, meaning that like if you having some sort of workout like running, weightlifting, like fighting, whatever that is, better not to do passive stretch before the workout. Dynamic stretching, like as I was saying, like go in and out of position, just like really activate like the ligaments and just like move in certain new ranges, new dynamics. That has the best impact on the run and on the workout as well. And yeah, like without any warm up, without any stretches, like active stretching, results was like, I mean, it's kind of dangerous for the injuries and things like this because still our ligaments are kind of cold, the connective tissues are not ready. So it always suggested to do like dynamic stretch, as well as I always suggest to my clients to do like a myofascial release, like getting like a foam roller, lacrosse ball, just like roll those surface areas and surface level connective tissues to get better proprioception for your training. And proprioception is your ability to feel the body in the space. Like it's kind of like the more we touching certain areas in our body, the more we're boosting the awareness of our body in the space, and we activating the nerve system by sending the signal to the body and saying like, hey, like this is the ears, like this is my hands, and like so that's why it's very beneficial. Like the more we like touching, the more we're feeling and we remember it.
So let's just backtrack a couple of seconds because I've heard you mention passive, active, and dynamic stretching. What are the
Mhm.
differences between those things?
Passive stretching is when you just like, let's say, yeah, like in a lunge. Let's take the lunge pose as an example. So the passive stretch would be when your knee, like the back knee is on the floor, the front knee there, and you kind of like just passively sinking into the stretch, trying to relax and just like go deeper in the stretch. This is the passive stretch. Active stretch would be when you go in and out from the position. So you go from the like neutral position, then like deeper in the lunge, going back to center, and that's the like not active, dynamic stretch. And so the active, there's like many different terms, and sometimes people like really messing it around, like and using different terms. But yes, like I would just explain you a few different options for flexibility. And the active here would be when you're lifting the back knee up and you're holding this active stretch, so your muscles are contracting, like your quads are working, like you lengthening the muscles, and all of those are working together simultaneously. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so is there one that's always the best? So is it the dynamic or the active that's always the best? Or is there situations where
Um,
passive can be better in certain situations as well?
well, I would say that like everything comes to a balance. I wouldn't say that like just doing the active stretch is the only thing. Like, of course, it would be nice to mix it, together every day. However, like yeah, dynamic stretch is still better than passive stretch. So like still moving is good, but I always like to promote variety of the movements overall, like I like to say that like even if we're talking about the same lunge, like try not to go in the same direction. Try to experiment, try to move your knee into the different like into the circles, like give it variety, like push through the feet, like experiment and give more like angles to so you can work with all like ligaments and joints and muscles and fascias.
So what you're saying is that there is better ones, but there's always an option to do all of those stretches. So the point I'm about to make is that everyone understands flexibility is important. They all know that if you watch children even pick stuff up off the ground or be able to lift their leg over their head, we start off much more malleable and flexible and elastic than we are as we sort of grow up. And actually that means that we need to focus more on flexibility. But on the flip side is as we get older, we actually have less time in order to, we have kids or a job. So is there a way that we can use these stretching techniques and flexibility in the most effective way possible, i.e. to get the most benefit with the least amount of input? And should we be doing it every day? Should it be once a week for longer periods? Should it be classes? Should we go to yoga classes or should we do it ourselves? What would you say is a real good starting point for someone who wants to increase their flexibility?
Mm, okay, that's a great question, actually. So, like, if you want to increase the flexibility, you need to also understand, like, how we decreasing the flexibility and like what causing it. And so, one thing I would say, number one thing, is that hydration. So, if we're dehydrated, like, and dehydration can come from many, many things. But like, if we're dehydrated in our body, it's affecting the range of motion. And so one of the things that really affects our flexibility is fast carbs, alcohol, and all these processed foods that causing the process called glycation. Glycation is like literally sugars, like I will simplify it now, but like it's a sugars in the body that like sticking your connective tissues, your fascias, your like to your muscles, like different layers in the body with each other, meaning that like you getting limited in your ranges of motion because you get tighter. So that's the first thing. Like, and you probably would notice like after the party, birthday, New Year, whatever that is, like some big events like weddings, like when there's a lot of food and alcohol involved, the next morning when you would wake up, you would definitely notice that the range of motion are not the best. And it happens because you have this overdose of sugars, because the alcohol also like the ending product is sugars. And so all those like actually like causing the inflammation and like they literally sticking your connective tissues with each other. So that's the first one. Second is like of course the water, like importance of drinking enough water on a day-to-day basis is like yeah, it's like very cliche, but it's very like it's basic. And the last one would be having like a proper sleep and stress management because the hormonal changes also would affect your flexibility. So, um, and yes, understanding those points, just like the stress management, and because cortisol actually holds your body and protects your like body from the unsafe ranges of motions. Um, and understanding that, like you can also decrease the amount of, fast carbs and like processed foods and alcohol, for example, and you already will benefit to it. And you could change it to like having more nutrients dense foods, like such as healthy proteins, like fish, meat, healthy fats, and as well as having a lot of fiber, like a proper greens, like vegetables, and this all will benefit to your flexibility. without you even doing anything specifically for this. So that's the first thing. On the second part, would be good to stretch small tight spots in your body, such as your feet, your eyes, your fingers, the jaw. And the reason is because like our body gets tighter, not because of like, not from the big muscle groups, like not from the quads, hamstrings, like, or like upper body, like we get tighter little by little every day by following the same movement patterns, like sitting a lot, walking in the wrong way, right? Like not engaging different like different areas. And so diffusing this process would be like very beneficial if you would just take a lacrosse ball, place it under the sink, and like just roll your feet every morning, which would be like the most convenient way, like as you wash your face, because like life gets busy. There's like so many things to do, and one of the really good things would be to yes, literally activate your feet every morning, and you will definitely notice how much it's benefit your balance, how deeper you can like you can go deeper immediately with your forward fold after activating the feet, and so many other like important like great benefits from just activating the feet. And that's one example. So second would be like the eyes. Usually on a day-to-day basis, we have in the laptops, phones, and like so the range of our gaze would be at the very base, straight, or most of the time we look down. When like if you would look around on the streets, people like whenever they walk, they most of the time look down or on their phones, which is also down. So meaning that we're not fully engaging and using our ocular nerve in our eyes, which is connected through the whole body through the fascial lines. Fascia is like the connection in our body that connects literally everything. And so it starts like one of the lines, it starts in the eyes. And if we're just looking down or straight, meaning that we're literally limiting our ocular nerve, like and yeah, like ignoring all the areas like that is like up into the sides. And so stretching the eyes by drawing this rainbow with your gaze without moving your head would be very beneficial as well, because like even if now like as I talk you can just sit still straight and like try to draw the gaze from the right all the way up to the left, and you will feel like without moving the head, without moving the head. Yes, head is still. And you like as you're drawing it, you will notice that like most of it, like the tightest areas in your eyes is like the top right corner and top left corner. So by activating those areas and stretching them for like 1 to 2 minutes, you would also kind of like improve your flexibility quite a lot. And that's why when we, for example, go to like some advanced stretches, like such as like extreme back bends and stuff like this, it's always good to like not even in advanced stretches, but like you would notice it in advanced stretches a lot. It's always good to like look all the way up behind your head, and you will feel like it's like literally immediately improves your flexibility. So yes, that would be my suggestions, like to stretch small tight spots on a day-to-day basis as you work, like your eyes, your feet, your fingers as well, like just like spreading your fingers to the side, like your arms to the side, and like feel the stretch. And it already will benefit you because you can do it like on a day-to-day basis, like, and it's quite easy. It doesn't cost you anything. And so if you ready to do it more consistently, just get like one routine, like 10 to 15 minutes and just like stick to it to start with. That would be very good already. So, which is would be focusing on my fascial release and dynamic stretching. And of course, yeah, like I would say that ideally we want to go on a classes like 3 times a week, work on flexibility, and you will get tremendous results in your like overall, like in focus, in productivity, in energy, in ranges of motions. You will notice your body changes and like you moving in a different way. You start like breathing deeply and better. You feel more confidence when you like presenting some things to like when you have presentations or like whatever you do, because posture improves as well. And so there's like many benefits, but not everybody would be able to do it like 3 times a week. That's why stick to something small that you can at least do on a day-to-day basis, and that will be already good.
I like that because there's a lot in there. There's the fact that we should start with, like, again, let's use the car example, okay? Just a general service of the car is going to improve the smoothness of your car. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a car where when you've driven it just before the service, you've had the car serviced and it comes out and it feels like a new car. It's smooth, it's flowy, it's all oiled up, it drives better. And I think what you're
Yeah.
saying is that, the diet that you have is going to be that kind of service. That's the basic. Before you even look at, stretching your arms and doing dynamic stretching or active stretching, you need to start with actually having a healthy body from food and diet, etc., which is good. The other thing you mentioned, I think, which is important, is even if you don't go to the classes 3 times a week, which is what you recommend, you can still do things by killing two birds with one stone. You're washing the dishes, you've got the ball underneath your foot and you're stretching. So for me, at the minute, I'm stretching in the shower because I injured my knee because of judo, and obviously I've hurt my back a little bit as well now. And I'm staying in the shower anyway. I might as well do my hamstring stretch, my quadricep stretch my lower back, circle the hips while I'm in the shower, which I wouldn't be doing anything anyway. So I think that's a really good point, that we don't always have to set time aside. We can do things, like even sometimes now, because the physio recommended that I do certain stretches for my ab and adductors due to the knee injury. I'm doing that while I'm sitting at my laptop working. So I think that's actually a really good point, is that sometimes it's the little changes, isn't it, to implement things into your daily routine that aren't going to affect you giving stuff up necessarily. And then obviously you can start doing that by going to the yoga or stretching classes 3 times a week. That's going to elevate you to the additional level. Is that fair to say?
Yes, exactly. So just like try to make small changes, because like this is how most likely you will be able to sustain those changes and like benefit from them. Because I've seen so many people, like this is like a popular thing to do now, like this 100 days challenge, 30 days challenge, and like some bloggers do that as well. And I've been speaking to many of them, and I'm like, okay, so like when you do a bunch of like this healthy changes all at once, and like you just starting this healthy lifestyle from Monday, like yeah, you was filming it for like let's say 30 days, how do you feeling after? And they're just like, yeah, I've been sticking to it for 30 days, I've been struggling because there's so many changes, and like I did not get used to it, I didn't feel good, and it was really hard to maintain, and I did it mostly because of the content. And after they finished, they not doing it again, because like you already send the signal to your subconscious mind that like yes, it takes a lot of struggles, and immediately, like after you're done with this, your body's just like, nope, we're not doing it again. And you would find so many different reasons to like not do it. And that's why, yes, small changes such as like lacrosse ball, optimizing your workspace for like getting like a laptop stand, like when you're looking at the screen at the same level as your eyes, that would be already very good, because you would like not overworking with your ocular nerve like on the like lower level,
I
stuff
think
like
it's
this.
interesting as well because it's mentality, isn't it? To want to start, to be disciplined, to actually do it. Because it's all well and good for people to think, oh, yeah, do you know what? I've listened to what Yulia said. That sounds awesome. I'm going to start doing that. And as you said, from Monday. And then it gets to Wednesday. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll do it from next Monday. And then Monday comes around again. And then it's next Monday, next Monday, next Monday. And then it's 5 years later and they've not done anything in order to, you know, in this example, it's flexibility, but it could be anything. It could be, making those phone calls. It could be going to the gym, doing exercise. And I think that's really important. That although we know things, and you're helping for people to understand what they can do in order to help flexibility, it's also having the discipline to stick to it, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, I really like the Atomic Habits book. And yeah, like one of the things that he was mentioning there is like yeah, make it very easily accessible and make it like very rewarding. So that's why I always suggest people to start, like even though like for them it feels like flexibility and activation is like a bit not like matching together. But yeah, like I'll often say like start activating your feet in the morning, start just like rolling this feet, lacrosse ball, or like even the broomstick. Like everyone have a broomstick at home, just like place it down and just like walk on it, and you will notice that it's getting a lot better. And so small changes like this makes you want to do more, rather than you just will commit to like a full, I don't know, 12 classes of training and just like go full on and will be tired of this. Just like start to do small.
Yeah, I was just trying to look for because I've got a squash ball in here somewhere, and I was just having a quick look in this drawer, but I can't find it. And I was going to try doing it now while I'm just talking to you and see how I feel afterwards. But unfortunately, I can't seem to find it. I'll have another look in a second, but it'll be interesting to obviously try these things out, while we're talking essentially. But were you always naturally flexible? So, I've got friends, for example. As I just mentioned, I do judo, and one of the things I notice is that people who have high flexibility can get out of situations that other people can't. So I don't know if you know, like arm bars, even Brazilian jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. If you have flexible arms, you can get out of situations easier. So a couple of guys I know, they can get their legs over their head. Flexibility. Their arms are like bendy because they're so flexible that they can get into worse positions and get out of it. Even on the attacking side, if they can do splits, they can, get their legs super high and throw you more easily than someone who's quite stiff. So, do you think it's something that is natural, or it's worked, or a combination of both? So, for example, you could be naturally quite flexible, starting from a 5 out of 10 flexibility, and probably get to 10 quite quickly. Whereas as someone who is quite naturally unflexible, their tips might be tight and close with the in terms of actual natural flexibility, and they're starting from a 1 out of 10 and they just need to get to a 2, to a 3, to a 4. Do you think there is an element of natural flexibility, or do you think it's all just based on what you do with your range of motion essentially?
That's a great question, actually. So, yeah, I started being very inflexible. I was like the most inflexible girl in the school. I also had a diabetes, which is, a lot of sugars in my diet. And so, yes, I came after, like, when I was fighting with my diabetes, I got to bodybuilding and I went straight to weights and progressions. And I was like very obsessed with that for 4 years, and I ended up being like extremely tight, like so I couldn't touch my toes. It was like at the age of like 17, 16, like yeah, 17, 18 actually. And so I tried yoga. I started doing this and I got like this even yoga teacher training when I was like teaching yoga at some point. And it was helping for sure, but it didn't really help as much as I would expect it to be, like because I was practicing yoga all the time. And again, like this passive stretch, uh, which was promoted there a lot. And so what I realized is like if you're naturally flexible, of course, whatever you do will benefit you. Like in a way. However, it's kind of tricky because you can be hypermobile, which is also not a good thing. And you like would end up like injuring yourself like in the like if you would work with weights, for example. However, if you're naturally unflexible, you need to understand exactly what you're doing, uh, and the systems behind it so that you can get more flexible. Uh, and so, as I was saying before, like the hydration of the connective tissues and of your body is very important because, like, the more you lubricating the body with the movements and with the nutrition and with the stress management, uh, the better and more flexible you will be. And so, yes, in this case, like it would be very good, like to do dynamic stretches and all those things.
So do you think that there's an element that flexibility and stretching can be what can cause issues. So, for example, I was speaking to someone before, and they had injured their groin, and it's quite a natural thing that if you injure a muscle, to want to stretch it. And my view was, and this is why I'm asking because I don't know if it's right or wrong, is that you've overstretched that muscle, which is why it's injured. And stretching it further is going to cause more damage. Is there a case that actually you need to strengthen that area to re-tighten, and that strength and flexibility are sort of inverse, or do you think actually that flexibility can increase strength?
Well, so you need to introduce as many movement options to your body and just like the functions to your muscles, to your body as possible, such as like strengthening and then just like variety of the movements. That's why I don't like to, for example, I'm not a big fan of bodybuilding because it's just like a linear movements when you move back and forward. For example, like you train your body to move only in certain directions, like kind of like a square and robotic movements. And so that's why like strengthening, of course, yes, like you need to like train speed and like flexibility and strength in the same areas, and you also would need to expose your body to the new air like ranges, to the new movement patterns and everything. And I always like to say that movement, it's like each move, it's like the word. And so the better your body, like the more words your body knows, the better and the richer your language will be. So like try to introduce as much options as possible to your body in order to be more flexible and like just functioning better. So yes, and if like coming back to your question, strengthening the muscles is very important, as like you like, yeah, sure, you can get flexible in a passive stretch and get the beautiful pictures for Instagram, but then what? So you can't really use your legs into the splits if it's just a passive splits. You can't really use your arms if it's just something like something else, and you also become like hypermobile like on a long term run. So that's why think about functionality, think about movement, and like what you want to do with this new range of motion. That's why like the martial arts or dancing is very good because you actually strengthening and like you increasing the mobility of your body, which is like the range of motion, like the functional range of motion. And that's really beautiful.
So you're saying that instead of being a gym bro where it's just one range of motion, you need the flexibility to use other smaller muscles, use the muscles that people generally won't cover, the stabilizing muscles, I think as they're called, that you wouldn't get from the gym.
Exactly, yes. I mean, you can get it from the gym, but like not from the regular gym workouts. Like, of course, like just going to the gym, it's better than nothing, but at the same time, try not to limit yourself. Like, why would you yeah, limit yourself? Because our nerve system is like works in a way that like if we don't use certain areas in our body, like for a long period of time, we just forget it, like if we don't introduce this function, and our body can do a lot, and like if we're not staying curious about it, if we're not practicing, we just don't use it, and yeah, eventually we just limit ourselves. As well as like the important part, for example, the as I was saying earlier about the hydration in your body. So like two of the most main injuries like around the elderly people would be like breaking the ankles and breaking the hip bones. Like for the feet like women after 60s, they like falling down, and like it's quite often that they breaking the hips, like the hip bones. I'm not sure how we call it in English, but yes, so, and it happens because those are the two most dry, quote unquote, areas in your body. And so, because we're not really working with ankles, and we're not hydrating, we're not strengthening them properly. So, eventually, like after some time, they get really tight, they get really dry. And so, it's the same principle as like with potato chips, like it's very dry, it's really easy to break it. So same thing happens with your connective tissues in the body, and especially in like in your ankles and in the hips. That's why try to move it, try to be curious about the movement, try to introduce as many different modalities as possible. And yeah, like as you like just sitting and working, like you can always just like roll your feet around a little bit, or like you can do some new poses and stretches on a day-to-day basis just to be like more in tune and like into their body, more grounded.
It's amazing because range of motion is the first thing to go, especially with injury. So again, coming back to my knee injury, I couldn't bear weight obviously for a while properly, and I've started going physio. And the first thing was that if you imagine the two legs, one was perfectly straight because obviously that's okay, it could straighten. The other one was naturally just bent, it couldn't straighten. And yes, they did the ultrasound and things like that, but then we had to work on getting that range of motion back through flexibility. And I think that's really important, that actually that shows that injury causes lack of motion afterwards, and that's why flexibility is so important. It's showing that we need to get the flexibility back in order to repair it. Do you think there is a single best stretch, or does it depend on the individual? So for example, for me, one that I really like is the pigeon pose, because I tend to get quite tight sort of glutes and lower back. I don't know if it's because of what I do in terms of judo or how I sit, I don't know, but that's one of my favourite. Do you think there is one that's the golden stretch, if that makes sense? If there was only one, if you had to eliminate all of the stretches and there was only one left, what would be the one that you think is most important?
Yeah, can I quickly say, like, as you was mentioning, like when you were going to physio and like one leg is straight, the other one is bent, and so I would also like mention here that like probably the problem would be in the small areas of that bent leg, like such as your hips or like the glutes, like I would suggest to do like a myofascial release with a lacrosse ball on the glutes and try to like roll the lacrosse ball on that glute like with the bended leg and see if the flexibility and the leg would improve as well as the feet on the same leg. That's what I would suggest to try first. But yes, so that's related to your problem. And the best stretches. So I wouldn't say there's like one best stretch like for every day, but like yeah, the downward facing dog, for example, with the dynamic leg raises would be very good. But yes, I always like to give as much options as possible to like experiment, and like even in downward facing dog you can like how most of the people do, they just like staying there and just like it's like a basic passive stretch again. But yes, I like to just move the hips, move the knees, move the feet, like leave the legs, leave the arms, and just like try to roll the shoulders. There's like so many different aspects of the same chain that is involved into this pose that you can still activate, like even like rolling the elbows, like moving, like changing your hands position, like working with your neck, and it's still the same downward facing dog. But yes, again, think about variety and like try to like activate and work through the whole options.
So downward dog's up there. That's good to hear, because everyone I see on Instagram, or if you go past a yoga class, a lot of the time they're in a downward dog or they're doing something. So that's good to hear. The other thing I noticed though
You
when
can
I see, so go on.
Sorry, yeah, and you can also do the elevated downward facing dog. If you would elevate your hands a little bit higher, or you would elevate your feet higher, it's gonna give you a lot like different sensations, different options. And yeah, that's why I'm saying like if you want to pick one stretch, like in one pose, even this pigeon, right? Like try to think about options that you have in this certain position, like how you can position your elbows, how you can like twist from side to side, even in a pigeon, right? Like when your let's say your right leg is bended like 90 degrees or like in front of you, left leg is straight. You placing your elbows and you can walk to your left side and you can target better your right glute on the side, or you can twist more to your right side and like walk further there. You can extend your hands, and like all of those changes would like give you a completely different experience. As well as like bending the like left leg at the same pose and like things like this.
The other thing I noticed though is what I was going to say is that yes, if you look at the actual class and look at it from a technical perspective, oh, what's the stretches they're doing, whatever it's going to be. And again, the only reason I'm using my arms because I can't show you my legs. They're under the table. But the other thing I noticed is that a lot of the people who tend to do a lot of yoga or a lot of stretching classes, whatever they're going to be, Pilates and all these sorts of things, they tend to be quite calm within themselves, and it's like they've had like euphoric experiences by stretching. Whether it's just in a normal room or it's in the warm. I think it's Bikram Yoga, like for example, where I live. It's a warm room, and they do it in that respect. But is there a connection, do you think, with the stretching and also being sort of calm and spiritual and peaceful? Because I tend to notice that correlation myself in people that are going to those classes a lot tend to be a lot calmer within themselves. Do you think there is something in that?
Yes, of course. So, like by stretching, like especially like on yoga, uh, as I was saying earlier, like the body is producing certain hormones as we do those stretches, and so the hormones benefiting your nerve system, like and you just feel calmer. Like even if you would like stretch for like 10 to 15 minutes, just like observe your breath and like being grounded, you will notice like a big mental shift before and after. And yeah, first of all, like our body holds the stress. And like it's like a sponge that like absorb everything inside. And like basically at some point you just like holding all of these emotions, even though like with the like from the mental perspective, you kind of like move on and think about something else. But your body still holds and tries to protect you from the potential danger. And like that's why practices like some somatic practices like shaking and just like stretching, it really helps to like let go of the stress and like come back to the calm mental state, and just like be more grounded. So yeah, of course, like flexibility training is like helps a lot with trauma release, with stress management, and just being more grounded. Uh, but it also helps you to shut down the monkey mind and just like observe your body in the space when it's like it's almost necessary, but like yes, especially on the classes, like on the flexibility classes, it helps a lot. Like
So do you find yourself when you're stretching either being inside your own mind and being in contact with your own thoughts and the external world, or do you find yourself listening to certain types of music that are going to align with the stretching? So people listen to sort of like certain types of relaxing music or classical music or things that are going to help their body relax in order to get a better stretch. Do you think there is something in that it's not just the one thing you're doing, it's how things all fit together, the discipline to do it, the music that you listen to, the diet that you've had, the actual stretching that you are physically doing, whether it's active, passive, static, whatever? Is it all of those things together, and do you think that helps with regards to the experience of the stretching?
absolutely, it helps, but it also, like it depends on the person and like the season of the life. Sometimes the thing can get really crazy and like very stressful. And so when you go to the yoga class and you have like on the back of your mind, like taxes, mortgages, like divorces, like whatever, like some like health issues, losses, and the teacher is just like, yeah, just breathe and relax. Sometimes it can be really annoying. And so that's why I would say like pick the type of the class and activities that work for you on a certain period of time of your life. And sometimes just like shaking everything out, like boxing, screaming, and just like all those active stress releases works. And like burning, like breaking something, like this. trying to think now when you're like breaking the dishes and you're paying for this, that's like also might be helpful. And so as an activity, it also would be great for your mental state first. And so after you performing those releases, you can go like into the class, into the yoga class or like flexibility, mobility class, and like you can be better because you just allow yourself mentally to release the anger, to acknowledge the stress and acknowledge the anger, process it, like let it go in a non-toxic way because like suppressing it and feeling that oh everything is okay and I gotta be like just calm and breathe through it, like it's not always the best decision, you know. Sometimes you just have to like allow yourself to have the safe space to process the emotions and then you can work in the body into the more calm way. So yes, and then like listen to this like calm music and everything. Like yes, but overall, like essential oils, like you know, beautiful lighting in a class or just like calm music helps most of the times. However, there are different, you know, I work with like entrepreneurs and like sometimes they're getting really stressed and like we cannot start a class and to make it like as effective as it could be unless we do something like very like active. And for example, flexibility also helps with trauma release, right? And like if I work with someone who'd be going through sexual abuse, and their hips would be very tight. So we need to process the like traumas and challenges that the person been going through before by like doing something that is like it depends on the person. There's like a lot of different techniques, but yes, you need to feel safe. You need to feel connected to your body because most of the times, like when you have something like extremely like traumatizing, you do not want to be connected to your body. You don't want to be here in general. And that's why we start to like eat, drink, and like, you know, do all the distracting things. And so it depends on like where you are, what your goals are, and like, yeah, tools, like there's a lot of tools.
So what does your actual routine look like? Because these points are to help other people. This is what you should be doing. This is the sort of things that you should be looking at. Diet, dynamic kind of stretching, and etc. 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 But what does your routine look like in terms of keeping your flexibility? Because obviously, as a coach, one is you want to maintain the flexibility, and two, I'm sure you love doing it, which is why you are a flexibility coach. So what does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
To me as well, like it depends on the season, it depends on the day, but I like to, like at this point, I like to just like push myself into the more of the acrobatics, more of the, let's say, going from the back bend in transitioning into the splits, from handstand into the back bends and stuff like this. So I like to pick a few different moves that like it feels to be like seems to be really challenging for me and explore the ways how I can get it. So it would be like training the small muscles, like activating it with calisthenics and Pilates functional movements. Then going through like a myofascial release and like as I do the passive stretches, I'm realizing that okay, there's like a certain areas in my body like would be very tight in this position, and like the more I get flexible, the more I realize like we all tight in different layers. And so, for example, there's like tightness that is like feels like right next to the bone, you know, and like on the surface level, it's all good. But like as I'm going like to certain positions, I feel like something is like the fascia pulling me, and the like this pull feels like right next to the on the bone level. And so I'm trying to do it like trying to release it from the my fascial release from different like rotations and like cardio work. So it's always full of different varieties, like of different tools, as well as yeah. Sometimes I'm just doing like the emotional release and passive stretches for like one of my favorite parts is like you know, I put one leg on the sofa, another leg on the like floor, and I go to like negative split, immediately like up with like without any warm up. And I wouldn't suggest it to my students because like they would need like preparation for this. I'm doing it without the warm up, and because the stretch is very intense, and because I have to hold and relax at the same time, like it's really good for emotional release. And so you're being really like you're putting this anchor or like whatever that is like at some point of your day, like to the maximum for like 1 to 2 minutes, and after you like processing all of this, gets really easy and like chill and your body is like not interested to do this anymore. And so you're going out of the position and it's been just 2 minutes, but you feel completely different. And you feel like you already had this time for yourself to process something.
Well, I can assure you that I will probably never be able to do a negative a negative split. And I'm assuming you mean splits where your legs are actually, instead of being flat, they're inverted. Yeah, you're lower than the stretch,
Yes.
like out
Yes.
of
I'm
the
putting one
thriller
leg.
films.
Yes, like elevated thing. Well, it depends on a few factors, like negative splits, like and just splits in general. Like depends on the hip structure, but most of the time people are able to do splits and things like this. It just depends on like consistency and practices that you do, such as like dynamic stretches, PNS stretches, yeah, like passive stretching would be like a very small portion of that, but still,
So,
yeah.
so for me, obviously, as I said, I do judo. What sort of stretches should I be doing? And if just sticking to splits actually for a minute, if I was to do one, do you think it'd be better for me to do splits that way or the other way? Does that make sense?
Full rate, like everything, variety. Like let's say, like if you would do the split and you would train your split only in one way, right? Like you would be flexible and your body would eventually allow you to go and move your body only in this specific way. Meaning that the compensation in your body would come in a way that you are very good at one range of motion and you're very bad at all other areas. It's same like yogis, for example. They are getting really good at some options, like some positions, and they keep practicing the same things over and over again, but they get really tired and bad at others. And so it's like mentally not good for them. Like it's like challenging to try things that you're bad at. But at the same time, yeah, I always suggest to do like both types of splits, as well as like don't try to just stick to the split. Think about your upper body as well, because if you will manage your lower body mobility, your upper body will start to compensate, and therefore your shoulders, your thoracic spine, your lower back will be tighter. Again, because you are very flexible in the lower body, and like the movement patterns comes to a compensation and to the balance. And so yes, like make the order in your body, like inside your body, like proper. So yes, and like if you practicing already judo, you said?
Yeah, judo. Yeah.
Yes. So it's already a lot of beautiful like martial arts, like so an activation of like the like certain areas, like such as like it's a lot of mobility work already. I would say like add up to this like the myofascial release, foam rollers, like lacrosse balls, but like intense work with the actual fascial tissues. Because how people do the myofascial release at the very best, if they do it at all, they kind of like rolling it here and there just a little bit. They're not really pushing, they're not bypassing the surface level connective tissue, they're not going deeper into this. And they just like rolling it a little bit and then they're going out. But like no, when I'm talking about myofascial release, which is also like an essential component of your flexibility practice, you really want to like push there, like you want to feel this whole process and like the whole area, whatever you're working with, either it's like hips or legs or like your feet, your upper body. And you want to give as much variety to this same practice as possible. So, yes, in your case, I would suggest to do it like that. My fascial release, and yes, after this, you can add on more of the passive stretch as well.
So what about injury though? Do you think there's a higher risk of injury of trying to stretch and overstretching, or not stretching, and as you do sort of activities, you get injured because of the lack of flexibility, if that makes sense? So the question is there more chance of you getting injured by stretching incorrectly, or by just being injured due to lack of flexibility and mobility?
I think most likely the more often there will be like the injuries that is like lucky, like with people who's lacking the flexibility. But yes, if you're having this like a gym bro mentality with like a go thing when you go to the flexibility class and you try to push yourself more into the new ranges without listening to your body, without understanding all the connections, all the important aspects of like, tight spots and like in your body or like, like previous injuries and stuff like this. Um, if you're ignoring all of those and you're comparing yourself to someone who's like right next to you on the group class, let's say, who is like having like years of experience and you pushing yourself, like of course you can injure yourself quite bad. And that's why I always say like try to be aware of uh like of your body, your situation and like whatever you're going through, like
Because
whatever your body
I
goes
remember it happened once at football where it was freezing cold, like -2, -3, and someone was stretching and they were doing a proper stretch. They hadn't played football for ages. Proper, I think it was that hamstring stretch, proper hamstring stretch. And I was like, mate, you don't want to walk, you don't want to stretch too much because it's so cold that your body's cold and you're probably going to end up twanging something. He's like, nah, always stretch. A minute later, he tore his leg because he was stretching in the way that he could 3 years ago when he was playing football, which he hadn't done, and it was cold and all of these sorts of things. So yeah, I think it's, as you said, it's about understanding where your body is at this point in time. Like, you can do the inverted uh, stretch, yeah,
Yes, yeah.
whereas for me, I can't because I'm too inflexible.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like the cortisol level is very crucial in this case because, when we go through something stressful in life and like so stressful events and like we go to the yoga mat and like we start practicing, cortisol affects your range of motion. And even for me, for example, like I have years of practices, like if I'm stressed and I'm going on the yoga mat and I try to stretch again without acknowledging the angers and emotions that my body and my mind been through, I will definitely see that I cannot go to like a like usual ranges because of the cortisol, because it's like literally contracts your muscles, it stresses your fascia, and the fascia like actually comes first here, like because it's like its response to the stress and it holds you. And like yes, first you need to have this like internal dialogue with yourself and also get the movements in order to like release the stress, to be comfortable, to be grounded, to be present. And after that you were able to get to your usual range of motion.
So you've done a TED talk as well, haven't you, about all this sort of stuff, which is, I think, is really interesting because you have to be someone who really knows what they're talking about to go onto a TEDx and give your sort of speech. Because I think you did it where you did some active stuff on stage as well, didn't you? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so actually, I've been showing people like how they can be flexible in like 5 minutes with five stretches. And it was like quite interesting when there was like 500 people in the room. I'm like, guys, so like flexibility is not really what you might think it is. And so we did like this small tight spot stretches, which was really interesting. And yeah, they got flexible and they were surprised, and I was really happy about it.
It must be quite nerve wracking doing a TEDx speech in front of hundreds of people. But the thing is, like, you've obviously got something that people want to learn about. So, what's the most exciting thing for you in terms of stretching? What's the thing that you like the most? Is it just the process? Is it the results that you see in terms of, oh, I never used to be able to reach over there, but now I can? Or is there something more about the identity and the embodying the exercises that's the most important, if that makes sense for you?
Well, I like to see because like flexibility for me is like one of the most complex trainings that you can have. Like because for example, again, like bodybuilding is just about like lifting weights and getting better, like strength, or like yoga is just about like finding peace and connection with yourself. Like yeah, there's many different options in like bodybuilding and like in yoga, but everything at the same time gets a little bit boring if you practice it like all the time. And so for me, I feel like flexibility combines a lot of modalities such as like movement flow, like animal flow, calisthenics, Pilates, like posture, breathing, somatics, and passive stretch, active stretch. And for me, like flexibility is like it's a dialogue with your body when you kind of like you go deeper, you explore it, and like there's always something new that you can find inside of yourself, and like you can find stored memories, stored emotions, and like you can release them. You can be like you learn how to build trust with yourself and like how to try new things, go deeper, and like yeah, this is like so many new inspiring options that flexibility practice just gives you. And yeah, the more you're practicing, the more you learn about yourself, about the world, the better you're aware of the social, like, circumstances. And just because you kind of like read the body language even like better. Um, yes, it's like so much for in this.
So, if people want to reach out to you to help them in terms of flexibility, or they want to understand your work, where can they sort of reach you and find your sort of expertise, if you like?
I'm most active on my Instagram, which is like at bali.body. Yeah, they can reach out to me there. And yeah, like for example, if they want to start some self-practice, there's like a lot of free resources on my page. There's like a free week, 4 weeks free flexibility starter, as well as there's like a digital studio when they can have like a 3 free classes. Yeah, I would be happy to connect with them there.
I mean, to be fair, I feel like stretching now for some reason. Like I feel tighter now than I did like at the start of the call because we've been talking about how this, that, and the other, and I just feel like having a quick old stretch. But is there anything that we've not discussed? Do you think that if we think about the sort of arc of the conversation, we've discussed certain things, the basics, good stretches, bad stretches, whatever. Is there anything that we've maybe missed that you feel that we need to address?
Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything. It's just like, yeah, I would love people to understand more like all the benefits of the stretching, like which is like the anti-aging, like it improves your healthy breathing and like how like injury prevention, like better posture, better confidence, like stress management. It's like yeah, your performance on a day-to-day life and your confidence and like a lot of things. And so like just when you think about flexibility, don't think just about like yoga, don't limit yourself. And like understand that it's very important, and like the older we get, the more important flexibility is. It's like yeah, so try to see the correlation between like your free and open movements and like healthy lifestyle and flexibility. I
Awesome.
think that's pretty much it.
Perfect. So yeah, we'll leave all of your contact details in the show notes anyway. But yeah, thanks so much, Yulia, for being on the show. And as I said, I'm probably going to go have a quick stretch now and get ready to go out.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. It's been a pleasure.